My name is Steve Stanowitz, and I am Sharon's dad, and Ken has become one of my sons. Joy and I are so fortunate to have Ken, Sharon, Cheyenne, McKenna, Vivian, and Violet live relatively close. For 25 years, we would see them at least once a month, spend holidays, and go on multiple vacations on which they included us. Ken and I became very close over the years because of our mutual dedication and love to family, responsibility, work ethic, and deep respect for one another. Ken was the kind of guy that I would say, gee, I wish I had a flushing jet toilet. The next thing I knew, he bought and proceeded to install a jet toilet that we have used for 15 years. It is my pride and joy, and every time I flush, I think of Ken. That's a compliment. Anyone over 60 knows what I mean. But whether it would be toilets, lighting I needed in the garage, decorations for Christmas, parties at the house, we would work harder than anyone else in the family, helping us cover all the bases and make it a success. Following the 12-year course of his treatments for incurable cancer, we became closer than ever and would have multiple encounters regarding life and how to handle it. Being a Wyoming cowboy, we indirectly bonded through, of all things, country music. During the last 6 months, while frequently visiting Ken down in San Diego, we would get in the car and go riding for an hour or two out into the country and discuss songs and life. I am only going to mention those portions of the songs that directly 100% reflected his life and thoughts, and he literally speaking to his girls today through those select lyrics. The first song was Fathers and Daughters. Ken said, I don't like Kristin Chenoweth. Sharon was with us when he said this, but the first couple verses were so meaningful and hit his life experiences, he immediately said, but I like this. The song goes, well, you laughed and told me you really wanted a boy, but you cried the first time you held me, said you never felt such joy. That's Fathers and Daughters. And when you took the training wheels right off my bike, that's the first time I could feel my wings, because you taught me how to fly. That's Fathers and Daughters. When I was dancing in the kitchen, you held out your hand so that I could try my luck at spinning. The world keeps turning, always through it all. You were there to catch me. I have learned how to fall. That's Fathers and Daughters. The second song was You're My Hero. This song is one that every father hopes his sons and daughters felt towards him. Again, these are feelings that Ken experienced and hope his children felt that way. The song goes, I would ride up on your shoulders and look out on the world, pretending I was big and tall like you. I'd spread my wings to fly when I was very small. I knew you'd be standing by to catch me if I fall. You're my hero. You didn't have to say a word. Your love was the message that I heard, inspiring me to be all that I can be. You're my hero, and because you're my dad, I'm twice as blessed and lucky to be me. Sharon wanted me to focus on Ken and the impact he will continue to have on the girls' lives and know that he is always there. To a scientist, that's easy to explain. Dear Cheyenne, McKenna, Vivian, and Violet, human life entirely comes from DNA and its associated energy. You are 50% your dad and 50% your mom. You all had 14 to 20 years to learn and use what your dad taught you in both body and soul, emotions, morals, strength of will, toughness, and love. You already know what he would advise you to do in any situation. 50% of your aura and energy is your dad. He is and always will be a part of you. You just need to be sure that you let yourself be open to feel your dad's love that he wants to always share. Strong people can handle life. What's tough is weathering those times that life and people are unfair, despite your best efforts, and you need unconditional love. That is what dads, moms, and sisters, and family and friends are particularly good at. It's like being enveloped in someone's arms in a comfortable and safe place where you can be 100% who you are and not be judged. Unconditional love promotes emotional stability and decrease anxiety and depression, making you feel loved and safe. Are you confused? Well, as an example, this happened to me. When my son Stephen was 4 years old, I stepped on his toe and broke his femur while running. For the next 3 hours, I went in immediate Coast Guard rescue mode, scooped him up, stabilized the broken leg, put him in my car, drove to the hospital, entered the emergency room, helped the orthopedic surgeon tape his legs up over his head for a 1-month hospital stay. During this whole time, I felt devastated, totally guilty that what I had done, and dreaded the next month for my son, whom I injured. In perfect timing, a nurse said, "Commander Stanowicz, you have a phone call." I marched out to the phone. My mom was on the phone and said, "Honey, I love you. Are you all right?" I immediately started crying for all to see, but did not care because my mom was holding me and protecting me and forgiving me. I truly felt the embrace, and you will also, especially if you believe in God and your dad's love. My mom was 1,000 miles away, but she was with me. Your dad is physically no longer with you, but he is here with you as well. Can you feel the love he shares with you? He is the beat in your heart, the sunshine in your hair, the shadow on the ground, the love in this room. He will be there till the end, every single day. There is no playbook on how to handle losing your father as a teenager, but this is what I do know. Number 1, your dad made sure you had the next best backup as possible. That is your family. He knew what a great family he came from and interviewed my family to be sure we measured up. Number 2, your mom. She knows a lot and has had a lifetime of experiences in doing it right. She has been the rock the past 12 years, and both your parents worked tirelessly to be ready, financially and emotionally, to guarantee your success. Number 3, 5 uncles and 6 aunts who will do anything for you, along with all your cousins. Number 4, your grandparents, Grandma Lois, Grandma Joy, and Papa, my favorite group. We sincerely promise to guarantee to fulfill any need you have to succeed in life. Please know that we are here for you and always willing to talk, protect, and guarantee success. Number 5, everyone please take comfort in knowing that Ken is better off than we are. A rest totally deserved. That Wyoming cowboy is finding out what it is like to ride a drop of rain. He has shed the struggles he has carried. He has only happy tears. Don't cry for him down here. Thank God we will see him again. Number 6, your dad taught you that even our most profound losses are survivable. And it is what you do with that loss, our ability to change it into a positive event, that will be one of your father's greatest lessons. Number 7, friends and family. Last but not least, the Roberts family want to recognize and thank all those of you who have gone above and beyond in helping and supporting them in this time of need. Sharon asks that you please see the personal thank you letter to all of you in the funeral program. You have helped to make this tragedy bearable with your presence and love. Thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. Girls, remember your dad's last day, June 26, 2024, this way. He shook off the scars of battle one last time. He arose a new man, to fly up and up and up, straight on through to the kingdom of heaven. And he slipped the earthly bonds, put out his hand, and touched the face of God. We should all be so lucky, and will be if we follow his example. Dad, Ken, till we meet again.
Hello, everyone. I just have a few things to share about hearing all these stories about Ken lived. This is just a few personal things that we shared at home that a lot of you don't know and what he went through. So in the weeks after Ken's passing, one of my besties shared a poem with me about the dates we put on a person's life. The program today states the first day being the day of our birth, and the other date is the day of passing. But nobody focuses on the most important part of those days. It's the little dash separating the two. That's where all the good stuff lies. That's where all the memories are made. That's where all the life is lived, the dash. Many of you don't know that Ken never mentioned death in his entire 12-year battle. Not once. We never talked about it as a couple, never acknowledged it. I even had to lie to him when he had 6 days left to live that an in-home nurse was coming to help us out. It was not hospice. The hospice workers even played along with our word game. To Ken, he knew how that hospice path ended. I got asked a lot, is he still able to work? Ken never took leave. He didn't until one day, just a few months ago, when he couldn't physically get out of bed after his pulmonary embolism, his bout with pneumonia, his lung bleed, and his 60-pound weight loss. I finally had to make him take some time off to heal and to rest. He always fought me on that too, because he knew what going on leave meant and how that was going to end. Ken drank his meals for 12 years. He hated it with a passion. He would sometimes tear up watching me and the girls eat a hamburger, but he buried this hatred and never, ever missed a meal. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Traveling with a Vitamix, he had no problem doing. Even our bartenders at a resort in Mexico would happily oblige and mix his meals right there behind the bar. Roughly 4,400 blended, tasteless meals he knew he could not forgo because that's what he needed to do to choose life, to choose to be with us. Ken also was unable to get a good night's sleep for years. He had a terrible case of shingles in 2021 that attacked his nerves, and then coupled with the cancer that traveled along his nerves, his ability to get comfortable was nearly impossible. He could only sleep on his right side. He was up every hour or so moving around or trying to manage a mouthful of mucus, trying to manage not only the nerve pain, but the pain from the tumors on his lungs and liver that forced him to lean to his side when he walked. But every morning he got up and he lived. He went to work, ran carpool, cheered at volleyball games, showed up where he was needed and where he wanted to be every single day. So when I share with people that Ken never spoke of death, I always hear, wow, that must have been so hard. That must have been difficult to try and make a plan. But to be honest, it wasn't. It allowed us the opportunity to focus on living. It allowed Ken to live fully and present with us for 12 years. That I think would have been greatly shortened if the end was discussed and acknowledged, if the end was part of our reality. In making these picture collages that you see around here, it was remarkable to see and remember all that Ken did, all that we did. Seeing your husband's life sit before you in photos. I cried the entire morning putting those together with the girls. So much of what we did as a family, we did when he was sick. And to think that maybe we would not have planned something or miss something because X might happen, or we can't do that because Y might happen. Always waiting for the shoe to drop. He knew that dash was a little blip in time, and he was having none of it wasted on talking about the end. He wanted to be here with us. He wanted every experience with the girls. He wanted to be present with his friends and family. He focused on his dash. I wonder if some of us would live slightly different if we had the sense to turn our focus on our short life here on earth, because it's truly short. Would we love more passionately, make amends, travel more, work less, breathe easier, put our phones down more often, connect with old friends? What if we focused a little bit more on our dash? My hope for you today is to do just that. Be like Ken and live your dash. Live it loud, live it bold, live it with zero regrets. It's a really little mark between those two dates, so make it big, make it important, and make it count. Thank you. Love you.
Northwest Indiana. Grew up in South Dakota, went to Laramie. When I first met Ken, my birthday's when I first met Ken, I was turning 19. And in Wyoming, 19 is legal drinking age. I knew nobody. It was a Wednesday evening. Ken said, "Don't worry, I know somebody who will take you out." We all have school, no one can take me out. He found a couple of his friends, I didn't, to take me out bar hopping. That's what Ken did, took care of me. After the third bar, I had made a bet that I could hit all 20 some odd bars that night. It was a case of beer. I knew I could do that. Yeah. We all got smart. We heard someone talk about Ken being the Terminator. Those of you who don't know Ken, before he had his second life, Ken was huge. I mean, he was built, and he was the guy that you could hide behind. I'm a big guy. I hid behind Ken. That's how big he was. He was an inverted triangle. And he also had zero fat, which I was upset about, but anyway, that's Ken. When we go drinking, he would always take care of me. We always made it home safe. Fast forward, we kept in touch. Ken would send me emails every now and then. Emails start out, "Hey, looked up where you were working. I see you work right across from a sewage plant." Yeah, it was a sewage plant. Like, what are you doing at work? Ken was that way. When I came out to SoCal, Southern California here to visit, I called up Ken, didn't call Ken, I sent him an email. Coming down, we're going to see some hockey. I'm a big hockey fan. My wife and I were going to come down and go, let me look at some things for you to do. I printed it off, and I got a 2-page email from Ken on things to do in Southern California, Los Angeles South. This was the side of Ken I didn't even know. Ken was a travel agent. He knew everything to do around here, and what time of the year, and what bars to hit, or what breweries to hit. We had a fantastic time. My wife and I had a fantastic time. And ever since then, we've been going to Laramie. Continue to go to Laramie. We have a home in Laramie with Ken's mom. we will continue that. So don't worry about that. We wanted to come down and see Ken before he passed. And I think Ken was looking forward to that too. But he didn't make it. But my memories of Ken will always be in Laramie sitting around the table or walking around Laramie with a bottle of Seagrams and a bottle of Sun. But I want to thank everybody. Some of us made some trips down here. When Ken passed, and Sharon sent out the email, the text saying that this was going to be his memorial. There was no doubt. There was no doubt. We were going to be here. Ken was our glue of our fraternity. Thank you.
Sorry about me, I couldn't bring it up. So this is a letter to my nieces that hopefully will mean something to them. Okay. So, Olivia tells me that not everything, by the way, Olivia's my daughter, she's the cousin, of course, she is right. But some things from your father and I discussed are, there are lessons, and I wanted to share them with you. The first lesson, Ken fought because he wanted to be with you. Take comfort in the absolute truth. Ken was not afraid to die. After the years, and only after Claudia, he shared with me he was, quote, surprisingly unconcerned about death. He was only concerned about leaving his family here. Ken believed he had a sacred duty as a father to nurture you and to your full potential. He wanted to imprint the best of him on you. He wanted to give you what he thought you would need to thrive. He wanted you to know that he loved you. He was proud of you. He was proud of the job that he and your mom had done together. You were the sources of joy, and he didn't want to miss 1 second of being your dad. Second lesson, Ken was heroic, not stoic. Your father faced his illness with an unsurpassed courage. He deliberately lived his life in a manner that would serve you as a North Star, perseverance, resiliency, and self-determination. Ken did everything he could to win. He was an excellent patient who trusted his medical team, researched options, tried new treatments, and sought your mom's counsel for every decision. He did not shy away from his health challenges. He simply did not give breath to any discussion that did not support a strategy of focusing on a positive outcome. You contributed to an incredibly positive environment that sustained his body and spirit, and it worked for a long time. You brought him comfort through your love and support. Your mother was a pillar of strength for Campbelliana, and you formed the foundation from which he fought. He was not passive. He did not give up, ever. Third lesson, there is virtue in the fight. I caught your dad kissing a cow. Turns out, the cow had fallen over, and with a heart attack, he rushed over to see him. After a few slobbery attempts, he realized he could not blow air in the cow's lung. So naturally, he tried a chest compression. First, he tried his arms, then a foot, then a kick, and he jumped up and down and started jumping up and down. Nothing worked, nothing moved him, but he tried. Ken knew the odds were stacked against him. His valiant and prolonged fight probably tells us everything we need to know about his character. You won't know if you're that one in a million victory story unless you are willing to go down swinging. Fourth lesson, you can do hard things. It delights me to think of your dad as a hippy-dippy new ager, but I suspect Ken's pragmatic narrative would be more like, I saw a problem and I fixed it. The fact remains that Ken's journey to California was one of deliberate transformational change. Armed with an education, new contact lenses, and a workout plan, Ken reinvented himself as the person he wanted to be. He had the courage to discard what he didn't like, set a vision for the future, and start anew. Ken's passing is transformational to us. He told me he was sorry that despite everything he did, his illness and passing would impact you. While we must come to grips with our sadness and sense of loss, I'm confident that Ken would not want you to carry this burden. He wanted you to hold on to memories of him that brought you joy and discard the rest. Ken became courageous because Ken practiced courage. Ken built his courage day by day, trial by trial, action by action. Every attack of his cancer gave him an opportunity to choose to be courageous. While it is unfair and unwanted, you also have an opportunity to practice your own courage. You can do hard things. You have the strength to thrive despite the hurdles put in your way. Nothing of value comes easily or quickly. It comes through determination and practice. Finally, last lesson. Your father's way is not the only way. Ken was a good man. Ken was smart and kind. And Ken thought he was funny. Like all of us, Ken didn't get everything right. An example of this is the family favorite I call The Great Bale Run. The details change a bit from every telling, but it still brings a smile to my face. Ken had his learner's permit, and my dad let him drive the crew of us to both ski area in our 1972 Oldsmobile Cutlass station wagon. On the way out of the snowpack parking lot, on the way home, the car started to slip on the ice and we headed toward the highway. So there we were, picking up speed and sliding uncontrollably towards the 50-foot drop on the side of the highway. When, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed somebody was running next to the car. That somebody was Ken. A quick check of the empty driver's seat and the open door confirmed that yes, Elvis had left the building. All eyes shifted to the windshield as we drifted rudderless toward the abyss. As luck would have it, the car hit soft snow and we gently came to a stop, just feet from the edge. Before we could even breathe a collective sigh of relief, Ken hopped back in like nothing happened and put the car in reverse. Ken learned the whole driving a car thing doesn't work if the driver leaves the car by almost setting us off a cliff. None of us need to follow his example. Ken chose to bear his burden mostly alone, but I wish he wouldn't have. Yes, Ken did shield us from the pain so much worry. And yes, Ken was able to define his own path by keeping focus on the life left to live. But this also meant that it is I, not Ken, who is sharing these lessons. It means that he has limited our ability to our opportunity to hear more of his stories, humor, and insight. I had fewer chances to demonstrate my love and devotion to him. I did not get to share with him the solemn honor that I felt would have allowed me to help. As you continue your path to becoming kind, strong, smart, independent, honest, dependable, and happy adults, I hope you will include me and my family so we can participate in your success. Ken's hope was the weight of his illness and untimely death would not limit you from reaching your full potential. I hope you can be as proud of yourselves as your family is of you. I ask that you continue to be boldly outspoken, unabashedly clever, and uncommonly strong. Fight for what you believe in. Be irreverently refined. Love with your entire being. Reinvent yourself from time to time, and do not feel compelled to do any of it alone. Love, me.
That I cry at supermarket openings. So anyway, I'm Sharon's mom, Joy, and Ken's other mom. You know, as we're moving around, there's some empty seats over here. People are standing all this time. Got some seats in the corner. Anybody? Okay. Just some random thoughts about Ken, because I'm a last-minute doer, and this was written this morning in the truck at the church. But Ken had a mind of his own. It was going to be his way, or not, and it started at birth. Ken came early and was born on day of the baby shower. Lois was in the hospital, had delivered early, and his father Skip had to entertain all the ladies at the baby shower. Let's see. He was the first of 3 hellions to come out of Laramie, Wyoming. Poor Lois. And I heard they had a big celebration when Ken decided to move to California in Laramie. Okay, I want to touch on his toughness, his stubbornness. Cancer at the base of his tongue. So he lost his tongue. But the good surgeons at UCLA took a hunk of muscle from his thigh and made him a cosmetic tongue. Now it didn't work, that's why he couldn't eat. He could swallow though, which was good enough for him and us. But the day he came home from the hospital, maybe not the day, but the next time he came to our house, that's right, he recuperated at our house. Because we had 2 doctors in residence, so he was golden. But he parked in the back, and the gate was locked. So this is Ken's impatience. He jumped over the gate, landing on the same thigh that they had just taken a chunk out of. And I thought my husband was going to go ballistic, but he just said, Ken, and left it at that. It took me, now, for the rest of his life, he couldn't eat, couldn't taste it, couldn't smell it, but he drank his food. And it took me over 2 to 3 years, because I would always say, Ken, what can I get you to eat? Ken, do you want some? Whatever I was thinking. And every time, I'd say, Joy, just, you think I'd learn, but I guess I'm a slow learner. And Ken didn't suffer fools. He wasn't always patient. Coming home from the hospital, he went, oh no, that's the story I just told about jumping up the gate, never mind. Yeah, but when he, jumping over the gate, that's when he just, get her done. That was his motto that day when he jumped over the gate onto the bed 5. And Ken was my #1 helper in the kitchen. Many meals for many people were served up at our home in Orange County, and Ken would bone the turkey, roast, whatever I had, put away the leftovers, wash the dishes, empty the garbage, put up and down, and take down the volleyball net. And when he took out the garbage, he became the king of recycling. Errant bottles and cans were put in their correct containers. And Ken was a true gentleman. One Christmas, we all arrived early to get a seat at church. You had to get a seat. Well, in walked this older woman. Ken jumped up and offered her his seat. I think my jaw dropped to the floor. I said, "What? Never saw my husband or sons do that." And I can't say that I taught him. And that's my thoughts on Ken. And he was wonderful, and we're all going to miss him. Thank you.
Bazillion years. We had some really good stories. My family was a little worried I was going to tell inappropriate stories, so I'll just try to keep it clean. So to expand on something that Kurt was talking about earlier, in Ken's ability of farting and burping, my daughter just informed me that Ken had taught her a lifelong trait of how to light her farts on fire. That was Ken in our life. But let's see. Try to make the stories kind of short. First of all, I want to thank everybody that showed up. Just the number of people that showed up at the service, and now it just shows you how he touched everybody's heart. It's just amazing sharing on how many people really enjoyed doing tonight. Real fast, we'll fast forward over to Tucson. I worked for Ken at General Dynamics. That division got sold. We got transferred out to Tucson. Now, one thing in Tucson on Friday nights was going over to, I think it was a Triple K Ranch, something like that. They had live bull riding, not the mechanical stuff, where you could actually get on a real bull. We'd go there every Friday night. They had a taco truck there and beers. We'd watch all these cowboys ride bulls. Well, Ken's looking at this thing and he's talking to us. He goes like, "Hey, this is something I want to do." And I'm like, "What? What do you want to do?" He goes, "I want to get on a bull." I go, "You want to get on that bull?" I go, "Yeah, I don't think so." He goes, "No, I'm going to do it." I'm like, "Okay." Now here's Ken from Wyoming. He didn't even have a pair of cowboy boots. He had to borrow a pair of cowboy boots from another guy that we worked with. 2 weeks later, we go back to the Triple K Ranch, whatever, from bull riding. Ken's got to sign in. So they take a look, they ask you questions like, "How many times have you been on a bull before?" Ken's like, "First time, never been on one before." They're like, "Okay." Now, some of the people were talking earlier about how big Ken was in that day. So he was in the bodybuilding. So Ken was like in the 240, 250 range, and probably single digit fat. He was absolutely huge. They match him up with this bull. Ken gets on the bull, he's in the chute. You really can't see the bull, but we're watching him. He's in there, gets in the bull, they open up the chute. Well, he takes off, right? He's on the bull. We look at him like, "What the hell is that? Is there a bull?" Anyways, he gets on that thing. I don't think he made it the full 8 seconds, but he rode that for a while, gets thrown off, and kicked off, comes back. We're sitting over there in the bleachers. We're all patting him on the back because none of us had the guts to do it. As we're sitting there, this Tucson local, full-blown cowboys, chaps, the hat, big dude, comes rolling up, taps Ken on the shoulders like, "Hey." Ken's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Was that you that just rode that bull?" Ken's all happy. "Yeah, that was me." He goes, "Damn." He just looks at Ken. He goes, "That's the first time I've ever heard a bull squeal." So it was just hilarious. And there's actually, Sharon's got a videotape of Ken riding that bull, and there's some pictures around it. I think his feet were dragging on the ground. But it was just absolutely funny. But again, he was the only one that would dare get on that bull. Fast forward a little bit, my wife was like, "I'm leaving Tucson, I can't handle the heat. I'm going back to San Diego with the reality tube." We ended up getting a job at Qualcomm. For the next year, I kept begging Ken, "You got to come back. You got to come back to San Diego. Come back to San Diego." So he finally gets a job off with Qualcomm, comes back. I think it took all about 30 seconds of Ken walking in the office before Sharon saw him. It wasn't long at all. And Sharon had a bunch of people that worked in HR, right? So she had the full scoop on him within seconds. So that was wild. But they ended up, so Sharon later on was part of the supply chain. So she was one of the buyers, it was the supplier quality. And they were supporting the same product line. So we had an issue with one of the suppliers. And they had to go back to Lake Geneva to take care of the issue. So they come back from the trip and we're having the outbreak meeting. And we're in the conference room sitting there, Sharon's in there, the supplier reps in there, I'm in there, a couple of us. We're waiting for Ken to show up. Ken finally shows up, he opens up the door, and all of a sudden he looks straight at Sharon, and this freaking grin just came across his face. I look at Sharon, huge grin. Everyone's looking at me, looking at them. I don't think anybody listened to a single word those guys were saying through the whole outreach meeting, right? I leave, I go back to my office, my phone is ringing off the hook. What the hell was going on there? I go, I don't know. So I get a hold of, I'm calling Ken, like, dude, so what happened in Lake Geneva? It's like, what do you mean? Dude, really? I go, the look on your face, look on Sharon's like, what happened? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, we went on a boat ride. I'm like, yeah. And to this day, Sharon never ever told me whatever happened out there in Lake Geneva. But whatever did happen was the greatest thing that happened to him because he was so freaking happy. It was unbelievable. And from there, the marriage, the family with the girls, he was so proud of you girls. It was absolutely unreal. I mean, sorry. But I was like I said, that was the best thing in the world to have. For that, I can't thank you enough. It was cool.
Hello, everybody. My name's Tim. I'm part of the Park Village San Diego crowd. So this is going to be a two-parter. I'm going to intro a story, but I need to warn everybody first, it's a little dirty. There's a theme that was starting to develop at the service earlier. And then after the service, I was talking to Kurt. And it seems there was a little bit of a fascination for high-powered toilets. So we're going to get to that in a quick second, but first I want to introduce the setup. So I belong to a group of guys, Ken was one, where our common thread was our kids. Sorry, I'm worse than Kurt. Thank you. I'm not going to read 4 pages off you. We all became friends because what we did was we focused on our kids. You know? Yeah. Here. So Ken and I had a lot in common. I grew up over the hill to the west and grew up loving old Chevy trucks. I grew up loving red tractors, worked on the farm. And when I got to San Diego and met him, I became the first Ken Roberts fanboy. Beautiful family. This guy was doing it right, and I knew it, and I loved him. So over the years, we all took our kids on these YMCA Adventure Guides trips. There's a handful here, fellas. Raise your hands. There may be a couple outside, and maybe many of you have done it, and I'm seeing the girls who were part of these trips. These trips eventually developed into the famous, infamous Lake Mead houseboat trip. This is a trip where all of us get together and we put on a great weekend for our kids. Everything from wake surfing to jetpack and a lot of other fun things we do at the lake. But there is a rule, and the rule is we don't come home and tell mom or anybody what happened at the lake. But I'm gonna break that rule. Actually, I'm not gonna break that rule. My friend Ryan broke. Come on. You want me to do it? Okay. I need Ryan to just tell this story really quickly. The story is called He Cut the Poop. But before I hand it over, I do just want to say thanks. This was beautiful, and we'll miss Ken.
So, yes, there we are on houseboats. There are limited toilets, very limited toilets, and there happened to be, in my second year, maybe my first year, a situation where the girls' toilet, let's just say, was like cloth. Okay? I'm like dumbing it down here. Nobody wanted to deal with that. They're like, whatever, the girls' bathroom's closed. I go to bed. The next morning, it is free and flowing and free for all the girls to use. I'm like, what happened? Ken was like, I went to the boys' boat, got a plastic knife, and I cut the poop, and it flushed down, and it's good. And I am like, bro, thank you so much. Nobody wanted to touch that. And he was like, you know what? I got it. I got you guys. Which is so prevalent from everything that you guys have heard today. He's the one to stand up and take charge, and he cut the poop. So we're very grateful for him. And the girls were too, because their bathroom is now open. Thank you. And I just want to say, we are going to miss Ken tremendously. We love your family. And I'm really thankful for all the time he gave to us, because he was there for everything that we could do. Thank you.
Sasha. And we grew up sharing a bedroom, fighting every night, just like her girls fought every day when they were little. But best of friends, we had matching outfits. We were side by side growing up. We rode our bikes to the pharmacy every week when we got our $1 allowance. We bought 4 25-cent piece candy bars from the pharmacy. What were we, like 7 years old? So she's my diehard homegirl from way back when. I want to talk about my memories of Sharon and Ken. One of my first memories of my brother Ken was at our brother Steven's wedding. I believe it was in 1999. Sharon and Ken were newly dating. Ken was the Wyoming cowboy, and he had found his very own California blonde beach babe in Sharon. I'll never forget the two of them on the dance floor at Stephen's wedding. Ken had a huge grin on his face the entire night, just staring at his beautiful, soon-to-be bride. Everyone could see the sparks of love flying through the air, and I knew that these two were going to be a serious item. Well, yes, indeed, their own wedding and 4 kids later, my gut feeling proved to be very true. Sharon and Ken were a team. They started their family, and they were totally devoted to growing their family together. Sharon, the devoted wife and mother, setting up a beautiful home, making delicious, healthy dinners every night, organizing all the girls' busy schedules. I'll never forget the massive kitchen remodel when the girls were just babies. Don't ask me how she managed. The whole kitchen was gutted. There was no refrigerator, or you got a rental refrigerator. It was crazy. Meanwhile, juggling 3 little kids. Ken was the provider and protector. He was a doer, a helper. Even after a long day's work, Ken would always help with the dishes. He was a hands-on dad. I remember Ken sitting out front with the girls for hours when the girls were very young. The 3 older ones zipping on their scooters, jumping off the curb and into the cul-de-sac, and little Violet, maybe 2 years old, trying to climb up the back of her dad's truck, and Ken would scoop her up right before she fell off. I'm pretty sure all these days of playing outside, from the scooters to the trampolines to the volleyball, led to the girls becoming the great athletes that they are today. But that was Ken, always there, always protecting, always working hard. Yeah, he had a few hobbies, old trucks and car shows maybe, but his calling was as a dad and a husband, and he never wavered in his role. Ken and Sharon and the 4 girls lived an absolutely full and beautiful life, full of sports and activities, trips and adventures, their favorite Hawaii vacations, winter trips to Wyoming, and my favorite, their very many trips to Villa Park on the weekends, when I got to see and play with my adorable nieces, watching them grow up and making so many sweet, sweet memories together. Although Ken was taken from us way too soon, he sure packed a whole lot of love, hard work, fun, and adventure into his life. His was a life very well lived. Sharon and Ken were an unstoppable team, and their girls, their masterpieces. With Sharon and his girls, they created a lifetime of memories to cherish forever. Now, I just want to take a little moment to speak about my sister. Sharon embodies a wife's devotion to her husband. She took her marriage vows very seriously, in sickness and in health till death do us part. Sharon, she's been an incredible role model to her girls and to all of us. When the going gets tough, the tough persevere, the tough stick it through, the tough show up and get the job done, day after day after day, which is what you have done, Sissy. You have been your family's rock. I just want to honor you as the wife who stands by her man through the good times and the tough times. Watching you over these last 6 months, I've never seen anybody go through anything that difficult. When Sharon was little, she used to say she wanted to be a nurse when she grew up. I want to be a nurse. Well, you were the nurse of all nurses, and I will never forget the touching nights helping your husband eat the last meal of his day, maybe 10:30 at night, him sitting in the chair that he was in for so many hours, and you just tenderly tending to him and feeding him and giving him his medication, and always listening to what his wish was, everything he wanted to do, you followed that lead. No matter how much, whatever everybody else was telling you, you should do this, you should do that. No, Ken wants to do this. Just an amazing model of a wife, devoted mother. Again, over 12 years of this. I mean, the strength, you and Ken together are the strongest people I've ever known. That is real love, that is real tenderness, that is the heart of a wife. Sharon, you have taught us all about unconditional love, brave love, courageous love. and tender love. Thank you, sister. And even though the past years were very tough, I know for Ken, one of the things that made his incredibly challenging time so much brighter was watching his daughters just absolutely thrive. So all those days of watching them play outside and helping them with their homework and doing the dishes after dinner, all of that in the last 4 to 5 years paid off incredibly. They all graduated, well, all of them, but graduated from high school, heading to college, getting their driver's license, making the track team at UCLA. I mean, the accomplishments are just pouring in now. It's like exponential. And that Ken, in the toughest moments, he could see all of his hard work pay off. And it was absolutely beautiful. Let's see. Yeah, I'll never forget how proud Ken was the day he watched 2 of his daughters graduate. This was very recently. Violet graduated from 8th grade in the morning, and McKenna on the same day from high school in the afternoon. His chest grew 2 sizes that day, filled with pride. It doesn't seem fair the things God asks us to bear, especially of these young girls. But they have been so brave and so helpful, so responsible and hardworking, and so loving through these tough times. I just want to say how proud we all are of these girls. You are your dad's legacy. I told him that on his last birthday. He worked so hard and was so devoted as a father. You girls gave him so much pride and joy. He will always be looking down on his girls with pride from heaven, saying, yep, Sharon and I did that. We did a pretty good job, didn't we?
Rich from Park Village. Park Village, raise your hand. Park Village is the community that we all live in. And Ken, may I start with this, is such a, we love him, raise your glasses, miss him dearly, but he is awesome. Thank you guys. So Ken, we grew up with the Roberts clan, which with all the girls, I think they probably know everybody that's gone through Westview or Park Village or whatever for so many years. My kids shared that experience. And with Ken, he used to stop by my house at the top of the hill on the way home and leaving, and we talked trucks and we talked motorcycles and we talked other things. We'd met out here and talked about our family so many times. But one thing remarkable about Ken, one day he was coming up the hill from home and he pulled over to my house. He's like, yeah, there was a weird experience. There's a bobcat sitting on the side of the road. So we have open space in the area. Bobcat apparently had gotten hit by a car. So he came over and we walked down there and okay, I'm thinking bobcat, we gotta call animal control. How are we gonna deal with this? And I so appreciate the Wyoming cowboy and Ken. And that's what I want to raise up right now, is that I walked over there and I don't really know how to deal with this. Ken grabbed the forepaws of this bobcat sitting in the middle of the road and just flung it over the fence back into the open space. And he's like, okay, done deal, let's go, I'm going to work now. And that cowboy mentality is top of the charts for me. So anybody from Wyoming and cowboyish, thank you for raising such an awesome son.
Hi, my name is Frank Reynolds. Worked with Ken for about 14 years. Most recently, I was his manager. So if he said anything bad about his boss, that was me. It was the last 13 years. So yeah, I'm who he was talking about. But Ken was a real good engineer. He was a hard worker. He's a smart guy. Persevered, and he had a real get it done attitude. If you worked with him, he was all about getting it done. And if he didn't know what he needed to do or he didn't know how to do it, he'd figure it out. He'd learn it, he'd study, he'd figure it out, and then he'd get it done. And if you were on his team and you didn't know what you were supposed to do, he'd get with you and you guys would figure it out together, and he'd make sure you got it done, you do it together. He'd do whatever it took. He had that kind of work ethic, that kind of mentality.
yeah, people just loved working with him, and that's why, you know, everybody wanted him on their project team. I mean, they couldn't get enough of him at work. It wasn't all about work though. You know, he really cared about the people. He took an interest in his coworkers and who they were. He got to know them. He was real interested in what was going on. He wanted to see them be successful professionally in their careers, personally. He'd do whatever he could to help too. He'd free giving advice, and he'd help out doing whatever he could. He was always happy to talk to about, you know, whatever it was that interested you. Some of the finer, obscure points about some weird automotive repair or something, he'd be happy to talk about that, as well as the pros and cons of replacing your water heater before it broke. You know, he had a lot of interest, and he really cared about people, and he really liked to know them and get to know them, and he was a real people person too. So, you know, if there was ever a happy hour going on and he was there, everybody wanted to get to that happy hour. Yeah, you guys know it, yeah. So he was a real good man. And he also, he liked to have fun. If you saw a lot of those pictures, you probably know that. You can listen to everybody else. He liked to have fun. And contrary to what Keith and Kurt said, he has a real good sense of humor. He did. Just to illustrate that point, we had an annual Christmas potluck every year. Kind of a potluck and a white elephant gift exchange. And there was always this big ugly sweater. It was ugly, and it was thick and big. It was a disgusting sweater. It didn't even smell good. That thing would get passed around. He ended up with that one year, and everybody knew he had it. But you know, the thing is, he didn't know how that was going to come to that gift exchange that next year. And but you know, it comes down to me. I think about 2 gifts left on that shelf, 2 gifts on the table, you know, and there's one of them. Clearly, it's a beer crowler, you know. I mean, you can tell it's wrapped. It looks like a beer crowler. Part of that handle sticking out, even have a little that Karl Strauss tag you can kind of see. That's a beer crowler. And you know, and the other one was the big box. Like as manager, you know, I could do the right thing, you know, or I could just make sure I didn't get the sweater, you know. So I said, you know, I'm taking that beer crowler. Well, once you know, Ken got this weird idea in his head, I guess. It's like, hey, I wonder if I could stick that sweater in a beer crowler. And, boy, he spent some time in our lab. He got the Dremel out and fixtured it up, and he figured he could cut the top of that beer. You know, those 64-ounce glass beer crowlers, right? You know, he figured he could cut the top of that off just right. And get a little vacuum in reverse and suction a plastic bag, get that sweater shrunk down pretty dang small, you know, small enough, you know. Just before it swells back up, just jam that thing in the bottle. He got the top, he did the research, he did the hard work too, he did the research. You guys worked with him, you know, he did the research. If you worked with him, you know that. Figure, you know, what epoxy am I going to use that works on glass? He had to do some trials, he figured it out. And he got the top glued back on. And doctored that thing all up. So of all people, as managers, sitting there going, looks like I'm safe with this pick. And sure enough, there's that ugly sweater. And boy, did he get a hoot out of that. Not even though his boss was going to be the guy who went up with that ugly sweater that year. So he got a good kick out of that. He laughed for a long time. Yeah. So yeah, he did that. So at any rate, you know, he was the kind of guy who liked to have a good time, liked to laugh, liked to have fun. Great coworker, though, in every respect. And I'm sure anybody who knew him, his family or friend, you know, just felt the same way about him. He was that kind of guy. So he made a lot of impact on a lot of people, real positive influence. And I'm sure what we see here is only a fraction of the people who he really had, you know, helped out and improved the lives of. So, you know, I miss him. I know all of you miss him too, but we'll have those, you know, we'll remember him forever. We'll have those memories with us, you know, the rest of our lives, till we see him again one day.
So anyway, my name is Rob. I'm from Laramie. I've known Ken for a very long time, from junior high, growing up in Laramie, a lot of activities and stuff.
one of the things Ken also is, I graduated, well, we're both in mechanical engineering, and we grew up in the fraternity. We have some fraternity brothers over there. There's a lot of stories I'd like to share, but I don't think I really want to. So I met Ken early in the morning, you know, growing up and stuff like that. I swear to God, this guy had the best sweats and a t-shirt. I swear to God, I don't think he even had a collared shirt when he, you know, through high school and everything. But that man was absolutely the heart of every soul, whether they're playing football or doing a lot of other activities. One of the reasons I'm not really here to share is that Ken has been like a family. He has been the glue to our fraternity, to our pledge group, to everything that has happened for years on. We have sustained our fraternity together because of him. He's the one person who's been reaching out. He's the person who has the heart. I love Laramie, grew up in Laramie, and I can't tell you how excited I am to go back to the high school football every time he comes back to town. We want to go see the high school football team. And he is adamantly an advocate about family, community, giving, and he goes beyond everything else. There's a lot of some other brothers up here and stuff like that. Maybe some other people come up, other friends and stuff like that. But he is the hallmark in everything. He is true and blue, and we are blessed. And I swear to God, you know, that he is the glue, and he is actually a kindred spirit to all of us here. This is a tribute to him and to his family and everything else. So I think we're all better. I'm better because of him. I just want to say thank you. So Lois, I'll see you later.
Got 3 quick stories that I think sums up Ken pretty darn. I am Scott, Sharon's favorite brother. I'm the good-looking one that still has his hair in its natural color. First thing that I thought was interesting, I can really only think a couple of stories of Ken before his release. And I think that says a lot to the father that he was, where 99% of my memories of Ken are surrounded around his portraits and my sister. That's number 1. Number 2 and 3 have just completely gone blank. There we go. My wife Christine was pregnant with her first, and I don't know why I thought those 9 months of pregnancy would just be full of fathers reaching out and saying, hey, here's what you should expect. I got a phone call on what to expect being a father, and it's Ken. Ken being Ken, he related it to cars. And he said a car needs a spark, it needs gas, and it's got to clear its emissions. That's pretty much how a baby works as well. Number 3, it's a story that I don't even know if you remember, Sharon, but I feel your girls for sure need to know the story. When Ken had his surgery, I came down and I watched the 4 kids. Ken gave me a run for my money. No, sorry, that was Viv. Viv gave me a run for my money. Man, that girl. Nothing made her happy. But I put in my week with my mom, and I was like, all right, what can I do now? They're like, well, I want to go up and see Sharon. She's waiting to see Ken. He just had the surgery. She's hoping to see him. And I was with you when you got to see Ken for the first time after the surgery. And I walked in, we're trying to be quiet. He was sleeping. Just trying to like sit down and find a place to get comfortable. And all of a sudden behind us, I just hear, hey woman, give me a kiss. Sharon said, oh, you found your voice. She came up, gave him a kiss. So, like I said, nothing deep. Just 3 pieces of who Ken was. He will be sorted.
Uncle Ken walks by him and farts directly on him. No warning. No warning. it was a drive-by. And it wasn't even silent. It was everyone's at dinner talking, and he just walks by, stops, barks as loud as he can, and keeps going. So now, when we think about family gatherings, you know, he was always the life of the party. The last 12 years, it was always Uncle Ken doing something funny, and it's going to be really hard to think about future ones without him. But I just want Aunt Sharon and all the girls to know that I think you guys are just so incredible, and I couldn't ask for a better aunt and cousins. You guys all are so impressive and such beautiful, incredible, amazing women, and I am so grateful that Uncle Ken contributed to that. And he was just a wonderful uncle that made a big difference in all our family gatherings. Not just by jokes, he was always the first one to help, always the first one to cook, always the first one to clean, always the first one to be there. So it'll be a lot to get used to, but I love you guys.
Pay attention, come on.
I know you're not going to a good spot right now.
Hey, I'm going to start talking. And you include people
It's like
who are
whatever,
talking
it
over
is what
you,
it is,
except
you know. It is what it is. You're not being
Right there. Okay, here we go. I have hard-learned lessons from Keith. I touched this thing to my lip and I'm good. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, great. So, what?
I'm going to be right over
Oh,
your
I'm
shoulders.
muffled.
I'm over your shoulders.
How about now?
Be steady.
Here. Okay, here. Thank you. Tim, thanks. Okay, so 4 freaking pages. I hope you guys are ready. I mean, Stephen read his, and I don't think it was 4 pages. Widely spaced. Oh yeah, I forgot. Reading glasses.
Big font. Real big font.
So in case it wasn't clear, I'm old too. So I'm Kurt. I'm the little brother. This is the little-est brother. And I had some thoughts. I tried to pare it down. Boy, you can't believe how hard I tried to pare this down. I never got below 4 pages. So settle in. Hopefully listen. Hopefully these will be some funny memories that you guys can remember, can share. And really, as a preamble here, what I've noticed in dealing with all of you folks in the last day and a half, that's not the right word, meeting you folks, it's that you guys had a different relationship with Ken than I did. I was just the little brother. You know, I knew him for several short years in the beginning of his formative period, but you guys knew him as an adult, and you knew him recently, and you probably knew him better than I did, and that's really sad to me, and that's why I have napkins to, blot my eyes. But hopefully you'll be able to get some humor out of this, and so I'll just begin now, right? So I recently attended an orientation for incoming students with my daughter. Not this one, the one over there. And the speaker there told us that as of this big college drop-off, also think of that as like when you graduate from high school, we as parents have spent 90% of the time we will ever have with our kids. That's pretty bad, right?
I don't like that.
So we've spent 90% of the time, the other 10% of the time we'll ever engage with our kids, that happens trickled out throughout the next decades, through the end of our lives. So it's done. And for the rest of their long lives, we will only get to see them on the breaks from the school and the vacations with their own budding families. That really hit me hard. This is a relationship with my kids that has been my very reason for living. It's teaching, loving, delighting in successes, feeling every failure in your own heart as if it were your own failure. Cry baby, sorry. Okay. Very soon, it will just be a few trailing off words as our loved ones drive away. And that's so poignant that countless movies have used these moments in their storylines. And so many songs have been written about this. It's like Cats in the Cradle and who knows what, that's for old people. Sorry, Isabel. I know you shook your head at me. But that's about the sorrow of having wasted your time, or not wasted, but it's gone. Okay, I'll go on. Okay, so the bottom line is, did we say I love you enough? Did we teach them everything we could have or should have? Well, Ken had this same experience with my mom and my dad. When he moved off to college, he moved all the way across our little town that was about 3 miles wide. And it was heartful and sorrowful, and he moved, 3 miles away. Ken was 4 years older than me, and he moved out when I was only 14 or 15. So that means that mom and dad got their full 18 years and 90%, but I was cheated out of the 4 years getting to know my brother Ken. Many of you have spent more time with him than I ever did. My time was compressed. My learnings from him, though, were foundational to me. Here are some of the things I recall learning from Ken. Ken taught me that all I needed to know about cool music. You guys know his musical taste, right? There's country, there's Rolling Stones, it gets better. He was my Pied Piper, and I was his rat. His music of choice was so edgy. You wouldn't believe this. It wasn't Kiss. It wasn't AC/DC. Not even Iron Maiden. Barry Manilow. Yes. So he brought home Barry's greatest hits album. I was just a little kid, and I therefore had to decide that it was my favorite music too. I bragged to my second grade buddies that Ken had an LP, and he knew Barry Manilow, and so therefore I did too. I was cool. So Ken taught me how to be a cool first grader too. He had a hand-embroidered shirt with the insignia of many truck brands on it. You better believe that I quickly learned what Kenworth and Peterbilt and Diamond Rio were. First grader graffiti everywhere my little hands could put it, and it was all Ken's fault. These are only some of the many ways that Ken showed me the righteous path through life. Ken was my terminator and my protector. He was always 4 years older than me. You've seen pictures, in fact some of them are up here on the screens, of what 4 years can look like in a child's life. Like a 1-year-old with a 5-year-old. Yes, there are pictures of me with Ken, with that difference. My reality was that Ken was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. He was the original Terminator. He was unstoppable. He could dogpile my entire den of Cub Scouts, and he would keep all of us coming back for more until everyone had to go home. You saw one of the pictures up here was dogpiling his kids. Well, imagine a bunch of 10-year-olds screaming, but because it was fun. And Ken was all about that. So Ken was my protector too. There was a time I was about 14 years old or so. I was my nerdy self, hanging out at the arcade, playing video games. In those days, you would reserve the game by placing your quarters on the glass screen and letting them rest on the ledge. I had $5 in quarters up there. I had that game reserved for the next 5 hours. And unfortunately, the local tough guys came in, the bullies, and they removed me. And the next details are a little bit fuzzy, but before I knew it, I had been humiliated, bullied, I'd lost my quarters, and I went running out of the arcade with tears filling my eyes. I cried all the way home, kind of like I'm doing right now. And Ken intercepted me and asked what had happened. Now, remember, I was 14, he was 18. He's going off to college. He was a big football player. I figured he was going to make me feel worse. But to my surprise, he didn't say anything. He just bolted. He left. He ran. He got in that stupid little VW Rabbit that he had, little purple one. And I said, okay, that's about what I can expect from Ken. I'll just put myself back together, grab a snack, forget it ever happened. I get a phone call about 5 minutes later. And it was Ken. And he told me to tell my story. I get to tell my story. It turned out that he was sitting in the living room with the speakerphone on, early speakerphones, with the bully's family. The kid, the bully, his scary parents, they were very scary, and the police. Apparently, yeah, I know, that's common in Ken stories, I get it. But it turned out that he was sitting in the living room, the bottom line is he had rushed over to the bully's house, and he'd gotten into a pretty lopsided fight with that guy. There were dents in cars, there was blood on faces, In my now unemotional state, I recounted how I had rushed out and left my money on the video game. I rushed out, left my money on the video game. What did I tell Ken? Well, I guess maybe I told him that I'd been beaten up and they'd taken my paper route money. So it's almost the same story, right? And Ken later told me that in those split seconds after he heard me say that he'd considered jumping, this is a split level home. It was really cool in Laramie, Wyoming. But he figured he could wriggle away from the police officer and jump down the stairs in one bound like Superman, out to the car and drive to Mexico before anyone would stop him. Seriously considered that, and I believed him. The saving grace was that the police found $5 in quarters in the bully's pocket. So, whoop, whoop, Ken, my protector. And he did it without me asking and violently. So thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken. We could fight like brothers, but in the end, we were on the same team against the rest of the world. And I really appreciated that. Maybe many of you who have siblings can relate to that. It's like you can fight, but if someone attacks you or your sibling, you're going to the defense, and it's good. So Ken was your protector too. Keith alluded to this a little bit, but the burden that he bore for the past dozen years were eloquently captured by Keith's remarks. Ken kept it all within him so that you didn't have to. You guys know him better than I did, so you know that, right? You could see the pain. I never knew what Ken was going through because even when I was right beside him, he kept it from me. All that pain, I had pain once. I had a kidney stone once. It was miserable for a couple of hours. And can you imagine months or years of that internal pain that just doesn't go away? I mean, how about the worst burning in your throat and then having radiation treatments on that same spot you just had a surgery on? I can't even imagine it. And Ken never complained. Yet what he did do, he asked me to freeze aloe vera so he could suck on it, because that was the only relief he could get. And I can't imagine what that would have been like. Ken recently told me, well, pretty recently, that he was documented as the single person with the most radioactive pellets in him from all the efforts to kill the cancerous lesions in his lungs. Now, I don't know how true that is, but I'm willing to believe it.
Over 200, Kurt, and he's in medical journals now.
So it's real, it's real. So, a hero who's like journalized or something like that. So I can't imagine. Each one of those pellets had to be pushed through his chest wall and into his lungs, and he never complained. To me, he probably did to you, right? Not much? Okay. So he's even more of a hero. Well, he protected us from the horror that he must have been going through. So protectors, Ken was a protector of all of us. He just didn't want us to deal with his personal pain. I had a kidney stone once. It was miserable. I'll be happy to tell you about it. Maybe you'll feel sorry for me, but Ken didn't need that. Ken he just made certain that poison was not spread around. Ken also tried to teach me to be funny, and as Keith said, Ken thought he was funny. He wasn't. I was the funny one. And he tried to be weird and kind of counterculture. I mean, this is 80s in Wyoming. He really enjoyed having someone under his spell. That was me. I was way younger. I was like mini me, I guess. He would egg me on and with challenging statements, but he'd use his own verbiage. He'd come up with weird things to say. Like perhaps you recall a time in the early 80s when all the cool kids wore Izod shirts with the collars turned up. Do you remember? Some of you don't. Okay. So the cool people among us remember that. And Ken called them preppies. You may remember this at a time. California preppies were like 10 years before Wyoming preppies. So we were the Wyoming preppies. So if Ken called them something, then by golly, that's what they were. In a nod to the Cold War and to the ever-present fear of nuclear annihilation, Ken taught me to call out the fad followers. They all happen to be the class leaders. He wanted me to be controversial, so I had to call them out. No, I didn't dye my hair and follow a countercultural fad like dressing goth. I do that now, but not then. I ran down the halls of the junior high school screaming, nuke the preppies. And those were Ken's words specifically. And oh boy, I believed it, because Ken told me so. So I got in trouble for it, believe that or not. Me in trouble. So I don't know how it happened, but Ken's words. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else. He also urged me to write it on the chalkboards in all of my classrooms. So, maybe that was why, I don't know. You may have noticed I was not one of the cool kids. Ken may not have been either, but to me, he was the cool kid. Crybaby, sorry. Ken, high pitched too. Ken was industrious, he was really industrious. Many of you who knew him knew about the cars and building stuff all the time. He was the only one of us, Keith, me, Grandma, my dad, who Granddad let drive the tractors. Only Ken. No one else got to. I wasn't even allowed to drive rivets on the freaking baling machine. And Ken got to drive them and fix them. Ken even decided he was going to buy the ranch. He was going to buy the ranch from my granddad. This is before he met Sharon, who stabilized him, I think. Problem was, Gramps wasn't going to relinquish control, and he wasn't going to relinquish control of his bottle, and so that wasn't going to work for Ken. And so Ken had to back out. But talk about industrious. Now, he also, in the old days, we had bikes. And we couldn't have motorcycles, but we had bikes. Ken made a bike. He made several bikes. There's a picture in one of these, well, that used to be going. I guess I talked too long. But the slideshow kept going. It shows him breaking apart like a Briggs & Stratton engine. Well, there's another one somewhere that exists, maybe not on the screen, where Keith and Ken both had a 4-H project of a bike. He built a BMX bike. That's how we got a BMX bike. Ken moved on, he got a paper route, he bought his own BMX bike. Do you guys know BMX? Good? Okay. I mean, you should be excited, standing up. Okay, so he raced that, he had like a sidecar. Have you ever seen BMX sidecar racing? It's crazy, it's stupid, but he loved that. So, because he loved it, I loved it. Ken built his bikes, Keith built a bike. I bought Ken's bike from him for $50. But it made me cool, like you can't believe cool. And then Ken graduated to bigger bikes. He got a mountain bike, the first generation mountain bikes. It's like a 10-speed with straight handlebars. Schwinn, it was the best. And I loved that bike, and I couldn't wait to buy it from him. And it was just because Ken was so cool, I wanted to be cool like that. I stole that bike. Well, I gave it back, but I borrowed that bike, so that's what I did. But it was only so I could become cool just like Ken. Ken always had a job. He ended up buying a very distinctive car when he went across town to college. He got a purple VW Rabbit. It had round headlights. I mean, that's how old it was. When I was 17, I jokingly asked Ken if I could take his car to the drive-in movie theater. Right. He said yes. He said yes. He'd never even seen me drive any car at that point. Mom was the one who saw me drive cars, not Ken. And it was scary. And this was a moment of Ken's grace. It was so cool. That damn car, he took me skiing one day. You heard Keith's story about skiing. This is as good as Keith's story. And the car wouldn't start. So Ken taught me how to push start a car that day. And guess who did the pushing? It was me. And I'm certain that Ken was 10 feet tall and bulletproof that day because that car was really, really heavy. And he didn't help. Still, it meant everything to me to be invited into Ken's inner circle. Boy, Ken was my hero, an occasional partner in crime. He could burp and fart like no one else. But before you condemn, look at these dour faces. No, you have to see it from my perspective. I wanted to be just like him. He could say, pull my finger, right girls? And really deliver. I mean, like, almost spontaneous. It was crazy. I idolized this guy. My brother Keith once brought a date home. Once. And she left in horror. She said something like, Ken and I were the Booger Brothers. And that was a high compliment. You know, it's like I'd been called up on stage to, at a concert to sing lead vocals for my favorite band. That's what it was like for Ken to be my Booger Brother. And he'll always be my Booger Brother, not his. Speaking of tough love, let's break those two things. Well, I guess I better go back. I skipped a paragraph. Sorry, guys. Ken wasn't all about tough love either. He was the first person to buy me a beer after I turned 21 up at the local ski area. It was shocking. A pure gift from Ken, of all people, with no strings attached. He shouldn't have done it. It was a wild ride down, and Ken laughed at me all the way. Speaking of tough love, let's break those two things apart. Tough. You already know that Ken was that. But how about the love part? We cool and tough guys, we don't use that word except when talking about movies like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, or awesome artists like Barry Manilow. As in, did you hear that new Barry Manilow 8-track? Yeah. I love it. So when your hero of a brother goes in for a surgery as grotesque as the one that Ken endured, you suddenly show interest in expressing that love. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of practice to say that word, love. And I really don't believe that I ever told Ken that I loved him prior to that surgery in 2012. Thankfully, Ken made it through, and I came down to keep him company as he endured his radiation and chemotherapy treatments a few months later. Even while I was with him, and I was at Steve's house and Joy's house, I still never said I loved him. Cool, tough guys like me. It was my sincere hope that Ken would notice in my actions that I was showing him my love in my feeble manner. Ken, by the way, never told me that he loved me either, so he's just as guilty. For most of my life, I assumed that he did not love me. I was not equipped with the decoder ring to understand the love and grace that he showed me. I choose now to do some revisions to my historical stories. I choose now to believe that Ken had been showing me his love through his protection and his play with the Cub Scouts and letting me borrow that stupid purple car and even letting me play his Barry Manilow record, which I think I still know where it is. I've now decided that it's not enough to simply imply your love. You need to say it. You really do. You need to be clear about it. In Ken's final months, I finally wrote him a letter and told him that I loved him. The last 3 times I saw him, over the last year and a half, I told him those words. First times ever. 50 years I didn't say that. I really think that he understood. I really hope that's true. However, my lesson now is that we cannot wait until some horrible illness befalls someone before we say how much we love him or her. Don't you all want your people to know you love them for who they are right now without the coercion of imminent loss? Sorry, crybaby. And so right now, with this group, all of you, all the way in the corner, wait staff and everybody, okay? Can you find it in yourselves to turn to your families and guests and coworkers and today and tell them that you love them? This is the interactive portion. I want you to do it now. I really do. I want you to say that. All right. There's not much time left on this. I'll finish. Thank you for interacting. I love all of you. But you know what? I guess I didn't even get to the next sentence. You beat me to it. You're such a good crowd. Do it now is what I was going to say. Do it before they have a kidney stone, or they lose a tooth, or a beloved pet, or a heroic brother. Keith used the word hero. I use the same word. Use my heroic brother. Use your heroic frat brother, right? Woo! Yeah! homesick. So Ken, wherever you are, I love you, and Sharon, and Cheyenne, and Vivian, and Violet, and McKenna. I sure hope that you guys did have a decoder ring for Ken's love, and that you felt in every project he did with you, and every trip he took with you. Keith, I love you. I hope I've said it enough that you believe me, even when I don't return your phone calls as you drive home from the ski area after your fancy bike rides and ski trips. It's hard. But I do love you. Mom, I love you. I know that I've said that every week since Dad died. I wish I hadn't waited until then to begin the tradition. With Mom and Keith and me, there are only 3 of us left to carry on the traditions and to tell the stories. You heard Keith's story. Mom doesn't agree that the facts worked out that way. So it's tough. But there are only 3 of us. We have a tough time remembering the through lines and all that stuff. My own kids and my nieces who are here with us today, I love you too, all of you guys. I love you more than I've ever found the words to say. As you have each entered adulthood with your long and fulfilling lives ahead of you, remember that you have so few precious moments to let your loved ones know how you feel. If you'll recall, when I began talking like 20 or 30 minutes ago, Barry Manilow and all that stuff, remember? I said that in the transition to adulthood, that means that you've already spent 90% of your time with your kids. I've spent my 90% of my time with you guys. It makes me terribly sad to know that. I fear that I have not been clear in my love for you, and you better believe that I will squeeze you tightly and savor all the remaining moments that I have. So thank you for putting up with me. We have Mr. Mike right here, and I strongly encourage any of you who has a good story about my brother Ken to come up and share that with us all. As I said earlier, you guys knew him far better than I did. You have more recent memories, you have more adult memories. Scary, it's R-rated crowd. But please come up and share who Ken was to you, because I didn't know him that way. And I would really love to hear about it now. And thank you again. Thanks, everyone.